Jory, you've been on your training camp tour, which is luxurious and amazing, obviously.
Luxurious.
Yeah, that's what we're going to go with.
All those tuna packs are, no, I'm very grateful for the opportunity, but a lot of tuna has been consumed.
Look, I don't judge. I won't bore anybody now, but if you just want to text me on the 0 to 10 how worried I should be about the Raiders since you were at practice, that's fine. But give me, I want to take a look at some players that you're interested on going into the preseason based on what you've seen or what you've heard and what you've been around. I want to start sort of with Chicago because I think everybody's got their eyes on them. I know you've been around the Bears. So what are your thoughts right now with all things Bears?
Yeah, what I think is interesting about the Bears, so obviously they played in the Hall of Fame game, but quarterback Caleb Williams, the first overall pick, did not play in that game. And to me, it is about what Caleb's doing. It's about their other first-round pick, number 9, Rome Odunze, and not just what they're each doing on their own, but what they're doing when they're on the field together. Because when I was at Bears practice for 2 days, Rome was a very frequent target for Caleb. And I don't say that he was a very successful one. In fact, I talked to Rome and Rome told me, like, look, like there are some things with the go ball that we still need to get on the same page of how we're reading it, if it's over the top or if it's back shoulder and all sorts of things. And so one of the things I'll be watching is I visited them. It'll be about 2 weeks, I'm losing track of time, before this upcoming preseason game. And I want to see how their ability to be on the same page with the go ball has evolved over those 2 weeks, because that's what training camp's for. It's for them to make those mistakes. It's for them to not be on the same page and then have their resulting conversations. And it'll be interesting to see, especially against the vanilla defenses that everyone gives in the preseason, what they're able to do.
I'm really interested in it. I know that Fitz, and not just because I'm in more fantasy leagues than I'd like to admit here in a podcast, but I just think about Rome Odunze. It's very rare that a number 9 selected overall receiver comes in and is like, where am I getting targets from? Because they already have DJ Moore, the highest paid player in team history. They have Keenan Allen, who is a target monster and might be a Hall of Famer someday if he has a couple more good years. I just wonder, where does Rome Odunze's fit? Like, where does he get his targets? But then I watch these highlights just like everybody else. And I'm like, man, maybe Caleb, they've had a relationship going back for a while, and that does matter. And maybe that works itself out. I'm really interested to see the Bears offense and how the pie is separated, basically.
Does that raise any concern, though? Like, because we're not sure if Caleb's going to play in the preseason at this point. Like, everything you're saying, Jory, speaks to the fact that preseason reps feel like they would be a benefit, no?
No, I disagree. I think that preseason reps are less helpful than, for example, a joint practice with the Bears which the Bears do have coming up, because in preseason reps, you're going against vanilla defenses and no one's going to show you their scheme. I was talking to a coach, and again, in the last few days, who told me that they intentionally schedule joint practices against someone, one, who they know the coach, so they can decrease the chance of fighting, and 2,
Lions.
You can guess it was not from my Detroit stop that I had this conversation. And 2, that they intentionally pick a team with a different defensive scheme than what their defense has, because that's what they want their players to see, and that's what they want their ones to get reps on. And you can kind of do it in a more controlled environment. And so I think the joint practice is where we need to see it more than we need to see it in the preseason games. And I don't think there's a clear, should Caleb play in the preseason or not? I don't feel strongly about that either way.
Okay, so give me another player that you've been everywhere. So you pick of the litter here. Is there another player that you've seen that you've said, oh my gosh, I want to take a look at that person?
Yeah, Ennis Rakestraw out of Mizzou, their second-round corner. They also had a first-round pick at corner, and so it's easy to be like, oh, well, they like the top guy better. Ennis has just been like a ball magnet in practices. I was there 2 days. He intercepted passes both of those days in team drills. I think he had 3 interceptions one day before I was there. And like, you have to remember, this is against Ben Johnson's offense, which I think is like an extremely complex offense for defenses to try and understand. And so when he's jumping around on one day and then another time diving for an interception, like there were different ways that he was getting these interceptions. They were not coming against Jared Goff, to be fair. But I think when you see someone doing that, first of all, then they're definitely going to be able to do it against more vanilla offenses in the preseason. And then I also think the more you continue to do this, the more you get confidence, the more your teammates get confidence in you. And then, oh, what do you know? Week 1, week 2, when they need someone in the secondary, he has a really strong chance of making that position.
Let me circle back real quick. I think the biggest beneficiary to all this Brandon Ayuk drama is the Detroit Lions. I feel better about my Detroit Lions pick for the Super Bowl. After all this has gone down, the 49ers might be downgrading at receiver. And reports like that, like you talked about, Jory, with Ennis Rakestraw. And we know Terry Arnold's going to be there, their first-round pick. Carlton Davis came over in a trade. They attacked that cornerback position. They knew, hey, this is the one thing this is our biggest weakness. We need to fix this. If we fix this, we could be a Super Bowl team. And so hearing positive reports about the kids at cornerback really makes me even more confident in the Lions, along with the Ayuk drama out in San Francisco. I think Detroit's the best team in the NFC right now. And I think that the fact that the cornerbacks are going to keep getting better and better and maybe be a plus for that team after they acquired 4 different ones this offseason. Great news out of Detroit. I think Detroit has had, let's say, again, whoever gets Ayuk is really going to be happy, but I think Detroit is going to be really happy that Ayuk's out of there.
And I'll also add that Ben Johnson, when I was there, said that in the first couple days of pads, he felt like their offense had more run stuff than like all of the past 2 training camps combined, because that defensive line has just really gotten super solid. I know that's run stuff, not a pass, but when you think about the defensive line giving that kind of pressure, I mean, what's the secondary's best friend? It's the rush that's allowing them to cover and creating these just situations for the quarterback where, 1, they need to get the ball out, and 2, they don't have as much time to get it to the perfect place or at the perfect time. And so I think you then have a secondary that's really going to benefit from that.
Yeah, you're right. And by the way, I thought Rakestraw, I was stunned he was still there in the 3rd round. So or second round, I should say. I was stunned he was still there in the 2nd round. So good move by Detroit all the way around. You were also at Chargers practice, and everybody's got all eyes on Harbaugh and everything. But what stood out to you? What player stood out to you that you were looking at?
Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting. Justin Herbert is in a boot right now for his plantar fascia, which I have a lot of empathy for because I went 12 weeks. I'm 12 weeks into my rehabilitation from a torn plantar fascia. I was kind of like taking the beat writers through that. I'm like, 2 weeks he's going to be back out there and able to plant. Like, I had my foot immobilized for 9 weeks. And then it was like 3 more weeks. And the doctor's like, well, your plantar fascia is so tight now that even if it's not torn anymore, your Achilles is tight. And so you could tear your Achilles if you do that. He's like, the worst thing you could do right now is go play tennis or go jump or just go or run and catch a bus, because it's just that sudden movement. And Justin Herbert has I think a tear in his plantar fascia, something in his plantar fascia, and I think it was plantar fasciitis. He wouldn't be sitting out and they wouldn't be calling it a plantar fascia injury. And he's all of a sudden get a plant in 2 weeks. I find that hard to believe. I think you can shoot up the pain and it's pretty easy to play through the pain, but I'm a little nervous about the surrounding tendons. Anyway, so he's not practicing. Ladd McConkey is also injured, although the reviews are getting great. So kind of a late round pick is Brendan Rice, Jerry Rice's son, had this like block that was like, they were really emphasizing the receiver blocks in this Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman offense. And all of a sudden there's just this loud noise and we're like, what was that? And it was Brendan Rice making a block. And I was standing with one of their executives, and they were very impressed. And so I do think that, I don't think he's going to be there like receiver 1, but I do think when you think about how a receiver can make the team, it's kind of like with that physicality that you'll then be able to, 1, help out on offense or in protection, or run blocking. And then also like that kind of physicality is what you're going to want on special teams, which is a great way for someone at the end of the roster. So that is great. But yes, did talk to Joe All. I was super impressed by him. Very tall person, I will say. Like
6'8", right? 6'8", 330. Is that what we're?
Was it 6'9", I think?
Yeah, whatever.
Maybe listed at 6'9". Yeah. Well, I was laughing because I always, before I get to these places, I create a playlist of all like the recent interviews that players and coaches have done there on YouTube, and I'll just like play it at 1.5 speed on my drives. And I think it was Khalil Mack who was like, "Oh, I didn't notice how tall he was. Like, 1, like aren't all of our offensive linemen tall? And 2, like I don't know. I guess he's got good pad level or something, but." Tall guy, and definitely like really making it a point to like stay after practice with Rashawn Slater, learn from him. And I also think it's good that they're like, you are going to play right tackle, Rashawn Slater is going to play left tackle, and they're not sort of like moving guys around. I get that there's benefits to versatility. I also think that's really hard for a young player. And so he's got to learn the other side, but he's kind of like learning one position throughout training camp, and that's going to be important.
For absolutely no reason, if Herbert, waited until week 2 to come back and play that, I'd be okay with that. All right, for no reason at all.
The Browns told me that about Trayvon Diggs too. They're like, can you tell the Cowboys like just let Trayvon come back a week later? I'm like, yes, and I'll just let Jerry know like you need to hold Trayvon out.
Okay. I mean, if we're just sitting in requests, like then let's go. All right. I am interested in the wide receiver position at Cincinnati. You obviously got to check out the Bengals. Who stood out to you there?
Yeah, so obviously with Jamar Chase holding in, that means that he is at practice, he's in his baseball cap, he is not wearing pads, he's not wearing a helmet, he's not practicing, which creates opportunities for other guys. The one who receivers coach Troy Walters really pointed out to me was Andre Yoshevich. So Princeton kid, track star. This is his second year in the offense, so he's kind of like got that familiarity with what his responsibilities are, and he's been getting opportunities at receiver 3 with the first team offense, which means he's getting that chemistry with Joe Burrow down. And so I think he's one who, like size, speed, just had a lot of the traits already and then now understands how to apply them. Because again, coming from Princeton, like he did great at Princeton, but he wasn't playing against the same level of competition as some of his teammates who came in at the college level. And I think he's someone who this year you'll really see make an impact.
And you'll see me never pronounce his name correctly, ever.
I think I got it.
Yeah,
I can't now.
I'm not going to question.
I
think it's Yoshevich. And when someone first said his name to me, I was like, wait, it like took me a minute. But even yesterday when I was talking to the receivers coach at the Chargers, Sanjay Lal, he was like, yeah, and Giro. And I'm like, am I just supposed to know that everyone calls Greg Roman Giro? Because I didn't. Also, like, you all have the same names. I talked to 2 coaches named Luke today at the Raiders. So like, you need to just differentiate yourselves. Name your kids Jori. Okay.